learning. The second thing is I will be sharing with you some links on Microsoft Learn, official links, which has got the theory part for the course, right? So my way is, of course, I touch upon on the theory, but mostly I will be giving you the actual use cases and I will be showing you the demos. So my strength is, and in fact, not my strength, you will also enjoy the same when you see the things live. I believe that if I keep using the slides, it will be death by slides. If I keep talking about a feature, right? I believe it. If you want to learn about a horse, don't read a book, right? Okay, just learn about it a little bit, but then immediately just ride the horse, right? That's how. And same thing applies with the swimming also. If you want to swim by reading, no one till date, trust me, have learned swimming. You have to go into deep waters, right? Or you at least waters, I would say. You have to jump into the water to learn it. So same way, to understand a product like Azure, right, by Microsoft, which is an awesome product. See how it works, how I log in, and how I do things, and try to replicate that. Right, whether you are using a free account or maybe you have taken up some labs, that we expect you to do yourself. Usually, we will not have any specific lab hours, but yes, during the course, maybe next week, maybe we will set aside some time in case if you have got any questions or queries with respect to lab. But otherwise, the second thing, which is we expect you to go through the theory. Third thing is do the labs and keep practicing whenever time permits. 24 into 7, the labs will be available to you. Practice at your own time during weekdays, weekends, night, day, morning, early morning, whatever time permits. Because just by hearing and looking, also, you will not completely learn. To have the complete fun, to enjoy, you'll have to play with the product, right? I use the word play, yes, right. So you have to enjoy like you are playing, right? You have to have that kind of, you have to put your heart and soul into that particular product. Then only you will pick up and you become an expert. And our job is not only to train, but in this 5 to 6 months, we want to see experts out there, right? So anything comes in front of you when you want go into the interviewer, you should have more knowledge than the interviewer who is asking you questions. You can ask a couple of questions to him, then he will know. Sometimes not answering questions, but asking questions tells the other person that you know things. Again, we will discuss later, right? But yes, so this is a third part of it. So first, attend all the classes. Second, please do go through the theory. I will be sharing the links with you today. Third is do the labs. And fourth is there are various practice tests which I would like you to go through. So that again, I will be talking about where do you get those and keep taking those tests, right? So keep testing yourself and see how the scores are coming. Because exam point of view, it's a different ball game again. You have to be prepared, and I want to see that all of us not only attend the course, but you also get certified, right? So administrator, the second you can plan for security, and third network. But again, you can take the second and third in any order. There is no fixed order. You can take administrator, then network, then security, or vice versa. But then, yes, AZ-104 is a base and which is a prerequisite whether you want to go for 700, 500, or both. So AZ-104 mainly focuses on administration. The second paper, AZ-500, mostly focuses on security, and the third paper, which is AZ-700, focuses on networking, right? Yes, we will be discussing more on that. But before that, is there anyone which we have missed? Because today, introduction day, I do not want anyone to miss out. Anyone? If I have missed out, please unmute and let me know your name and your expectations mainly. Okay, no worries. I believe all of us have introduced. That's great. Okay, so then in that case, let me proceed here. We have already known, and let's have brief time together. So be on time. Weekend classes, Indian Standard Time, we will be starting on 8. Be present, avoid mail, calls, side meetings, etc. during this time, right? Attendance is getting captured. Remember, I am not going to call out the name like we used to do in school and college days. Automatically, Teams nowadays records the attendance, and I will have a list automatically coming to me on who are attending the classes, right? So, and even in case if anyone is logging out, etc., we'll get to know that, right? So, what time you logged in, logged out. So, those things are just so that are getting captured automatically by Teams, and we will have all those reports. Material learn.microsoft.com is a place where you get your material. I'll be sharing the link also. Exact link for AZ-104 500 is a little different, but that's a universal URL. One second, let me here. That's company. Give me a second. Earlier, I had worked with a company. That name is coming up here. That's wrong. I'll just remove that. Yeah. So sorry for that. Yeah. So labs are already being provided to you. For those who have not availed labs, maybe you can uh, you can take up the free labs which are available from Microsoft. We will be talking about that as well. Recordings will be available, so all the sessions which you are going through are getting recorded, and make sure that you also keep giving your feedbacks, right? We will also soon will be creating a WhatsApp group. I will be sharing the link by tomorrow for sure for this WhatsApp group, and you can all join that particular WhatsApp group if you have in the weekdays also any kind of a query or any logistic problems, right? So for logistic, of course, I'm not the right person. Logistic is something which Gaurav, and there are other people, maybe the coordinator, which whom you might be in touch with, right? You can get to them for any logistic problems. But otherwise, any kind of a technical queries or questions you have, you can ask me during the classes, or else you can also put that in the WhatsApp group, which we will be creating. Okay. So about this course prerequisite. So prerequisite is we have already spoken about at least 6 months to 1 year. You should have some basic knowledge, not about cloud. I'm not saying cloud or Azure, but some basic knowledge on the server side technologies like DNS, DHCP, IP address, right? What is a server? What is a client? Those kind of basic things we expect and assume that you are already aware of, right? So what is storage, or what is network basics, right? What is a router? So if we use those particular term, we don't want anyone to come and say, hey, I've never heard about what exactly is a router, which you said, or what is a switch, which you were talking about. So we expect you are already aware. And exactly that was a reason when we had introduced ourselves. Now I know that at least 90 to 95%, in fact, 100% of you are already well versed with the basics, right, about the networking and security. And you are aware of some of those particular terms: router, switch, IP, DNS, DSCP. You are an IT, which means overall. Okay. So, as a cloud administrator or as a Azure administrator, which you are expected to do, what you are expected to do in an organization where you work, you are expected to work with storage, basic networking, basic compute, cloud app services, right? Basic security. So, as an administrator, it's more about how you take backup of things, how do you spin a virtual machine, how do you create a storage account, how do you create new users, how do you delete new users, if anyone forgets the password, how do you reset it? That's what is a role of an administrator. Usually, not too much is expected at this particular level, right? So that's a kind of a first level when we talk about in Azure. Now, usually this course, AZ-104, full-time course is actually 4 days. Now, we will not talk about days. We will rather talk about hours. So when we talk about 4 days, usually this is kind of 8 hours. So 8, 8, and 8. That makes an octet, I think, right? So, oh, it's so 32 hours. So 32 hours precisely, usually in case if it's a 1 day course, 8 hours, usually there are going to be breaks, 30 to 45 minutes lunch break, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. There are 2 tea breaks. So effectively 6.5 to 7 hours is what is needed per day. All 4 days put together, we say roughly around 28 hours is expected, right? Or usually that's what is the time, right? 8 hours full day, but minus 1.5 hours. So 24 to 28 hours is what this particular course is designed for. Now, this 24 to 28 hours, what participant learns, these are the topics which the participant goes through, which are there right now on the slide. Now, in our case, this 4 day, we are going to divide into how many days? So think we are just going to work roughly around 2 hours on Saturdays, 2 hours on Sundays. So that makes 4 hours, which means to complete at least 28 to 32 hours, we will be spending roughly around 6 to 8 weeks. Take an average, let's say 7 weeks. right? So, or else keep it as 2 months, roughly around 2 months, right? Give or take a couple of classes there. So this is an approximate number of, in our case, it's going to be roughly around 2 months, you can say, for AZ-104 alone, this one particular paper. Similarly, the second paper, AZ-500, again, it's a 4 day full time 32 hours. If we spread that across, and weekly we do only 2 to 4 hours in the weekends, again that's going to take roughly around 2 months. The third paper which we are going to do is AZ-700, that is 3 days course, usually full day. So in our case, roughly around 1.5 months, right? So that's the reason I was saying 5 to 6 months is what you can take as the complete spend for those who have enrolled for all the three courses. If you have just enrolled for 104, roughly take 2 months, right? Roughly around 7 to 8 weeks is going to be the time frame when we do the course. Now, not only we expect you to go through the classes here, but then as I already said, go through some material also, which I'm going to share with you, the links and labs as well on your own there, right? So I will be giving you the demos, but then I expect that you are doing the labs whenever you are getting times. Of course, if you face any challenges, you can put that on the meeting chat, which I will be sharing the link tomorrow. Or else, of course, you can also during the classes let me know. Okay. Now, talking about the syllabus for this first course, right now I'm not discussing the 500 and 700. That's going to come later. Right now, if I talk about only the administrator course, what is expected as an administrator, what we are going to cover in this course, let us understand. Now, here each brick which you see here is going to be kind of our one class. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So actually it says 12, but maybe there could be a class or two extra. Like if I talk about the today's class, which is more into introduction and AZ-900, I am going to focus on what is there in AZ-900. Some of you might be feeling that am I missing something? I have not done AZ-900, so don't worry. That's what is we are going to talk about today, right? So we are going to mainly start on AZ-104 with the first module tomorrow onwards. So today's day, welcome day. We will keep it light. We'll just have already had some interactions today. Plus, we will talk about what was there in AZ-900. So tomorrow onwards, we are going to start up with the identity. So that was the reason I was saying 12 plus, take up at least 2 more classes, right? So maybe 14 classes, 7 weeks. If needed, we will give you a class or two extra, right? So how do you appear in a kind of an interview, some Q&A, if required. We have kept some buffer week also. So the course actually can be completed in 6 to 7 weeks, but then we might take up an extra week there. So that's all fine, right? We will take your opinion also if needed. Now, let's see what exactly are the things which we are going to cover. So maybe tomorrow, for example, is the identity day. So tomorrow we are going to start up. Today we are into welcome. Tomorrow we are going to take up identity. Now, in our case, there is not going to be any breaks, no lunch break, no tea break, no coffee break. Yes, maybe a 5 minute bio break, right? So of course, in 2 hours, in case if someone wants, you can let me know. If I'll need, I'll let you know, right? So maybe 5 minutes. Sometimes, if you think that the sessions are very overwhelming, maybe after an hour, 15 minutes, if you want, do let me know in the chat. If I will feel like I can, sometimes, not always, right? Occasionally, maybe we can have a 5 minute bio break. Otherwise, actually, no breaks as such is formally planned in the sessions. It's going to be continuous usually. Okay. Okay. So tomorrow, it's more going to be identity. What exactly is going to be in identity? What are we going to learn here? So this is something where we will be starting up with Azure. How do you work with portal? How do you navigate with the portal? We will start with that. We'll see what is a tenant, what is multi-tenant. Now, if a new user joins, so always see it. We talk about new user. If you join an organization, they will create your account. So even before you start working with Azure, you need an account with which you log in. Right. So that's the reason the first module is identity. We teach you how do you create logins, how do you create users. If a user forgets his password, how do I reset his password? If I want to delete a user, if he leaves the organization, how do I delete his account? So how to create account, delete account, How do you stop a user, pause a user? So mostly we play with the user part. How do we check when did he logged in, when did he logged out? How do we check those basic? How do we audit it? Uh, in case if we want the user to use multi-factor authentication or single sign-on, how do we configure those things? So it's mostly we are going to revolve around user, type of users, guest user, member user, deleting user, creating users, creating and deleting users in bulk, using scripts. Focus will be there. What is a tenant, right? What is an active directory? All that is going to be discussed in this module, which we are going to take up tomorrow. Again, one class we will dedicate next week. This is going to come on Saturday. Governance and compliance. In this module, we will talk about policies, initiatives, blueprints, those kind of stuff. Like, for example, you don't want people to create resources outside Canada. So you are serving a company which is there in Canada, and the company says that, okay, anyone tries to create a virtual machine in India or UAE, no, we don't want to allow them, only allow to create machines in Canada, or it could be any other stuff also, but mainly we want to enforce a policy out there. Or maybe they want to say that there are various machines which can be created with 16 GB RAM, with 32 GB RAM. Maybe the company will say that, okay, I don't want anyone to create machines less than 8 GB or more than 16 GB RAM. Right. In Azure, it is possible. A virtual machine can be created on 32 GB, but company wants to apply a policy out there. So if I want to enforce some policies, how do we do it? Or group of policies, which are called as initiatives. How do I create a group of policies and enforce it on my subscription or at a tenant level or at a resource group level? How do we do that? So we will be talking about those things here in this module, governance and compute. Next, that is, this might come next week, Sunday, Azure Administration. Here, we will learn things like what is templates, Terraform, Azure Resource Manager templates, biceps, what is CLI, PowerShell. Here, we will be practicing and working with commands. How can you create a virtual machine by giving a command? How do you maybe create a resource group by giving some commands, CLI command, AZ commands, right? So some of those commands, or how do you write scripts? Terraform, right? Which is cloud agnostic tools, right? So if I want to create and work with infrastructure as a service, right? How do we work with that? Or how do I code my infrastructure? This is what we are going to learn in Azure Administration. So this is tomorrow, and this is going to be the next week. The following week, no, I'm not saying which Saturday, Sunday, but this again, the next class will be on virtual networking. Here we will be working on how do you create VNets, how do you create subnets, how do you play with the VNet, how do you create subnet, how do you delete VNet, how do you work with NSG network security policies. How do you create certain ports you want to allow? NSG is what we call it as, right? Uh, so in case if I want to allow some particular ports, 3389, port 22, how do we configure those things in the NSG or ASG, right? Application security group, network security group. How do you work with VNets? Those things will come up here. Next is inter-site connectivity. This is more going to be on how do you connect to net. So if I have got a network in India, I have got a network in Canada. Now I want to connect both of them. We call it peering. How do you work with peering? We will also talk about what is VPN, what is express route, right? But usually in administration course, then this we keep it as basics, right? So we don't expect here to go and take a deeper dive into those things, but at least awareness and how do you create peering specifically is what you will be talking about in more details. VPN, we will be talking about stuff like so that these things comes under inter-site connectivity. So connecting different sites. Next is another day network traffic management. So one day we dedicate on load balancers. How do you work with traffic management? What are the different type of load balancers? HTTP, non-HTTP load balancers, Azure Application Gateway. So here we will be working with load balancing and load balancers one day. Next, one day we will dedicate on storage, where we will be working on how do you create a storage account, how do you store your things, how do you access the stuff which is stored on cloud, how do you delete all those things, how do you replicate your data, right? Storage replications, storage. One day we dedicate on virtual machines, Linux VM, how do you create on cloud? How do you create Windows machines on cloud? How do you access those machines remotely, right? So that's Azure virtual machine. App services, here is when we start with the PaaS services, platform as a services. Here we work with how do you create a basic website. So again, remember, we are into infrastructure. So we don't go into detail of creating a website or programming, no. So here we will just create a hello world website, just so that you have an understanding that how do you manage platform services and how do you support the developers. So here, remember, this is a difference that we are infrastructure. AZ-500, AZ-700, AZ-104 all teaches you to be an infrastructure admin. Then there is another courses like AZ-204 DevOps or Azure for developers, AZ-204, which is a course for developers. But then infrastructure people usually supports the developers, and so that each one of them needs to know a little bit of each other's job, right? So hence we will also be learning in this course a little bit on app services, very basic, how to create a website, how do we create a web app, how do you do that, maybe a hello world website. And then our focus then more will be on how do we, in case if there are thousands of users hitting the website, and if I want to increase the compute, the backend machines I want to scale up, scale down, how do you configure those? How do you use automation, right? So the focus will be more on that particular part. How do you secure your website? How do you filter and allow only certain people to access website? I don't want to allow everyone. I want only some specific IP addresses to connect to the websites. How do we do that? These are the things which we will be focusing on app services. So next one module we also will be dedicating on containers and ACA. Again, basics of Kubernetes and containers is what we will be discussing here. Again, not too much of details. As I said, Docker container are done by developers, but as a these two modules, as so we will be spending maybe one Saturday or Sunday, 1 week, just to understand their job and basics of that, so that we can support them. So our focus will be more on how do we support them when it comes to increasing resources, decreasing resources, securing those web apps, etc. Right, but not on more on developing end. How do you create a website, or how do you .NET, Java? No, none of these courses are going to cover .NET, Java, right? Python, no. Data protection. Data protection is a module where we learn a little bit about security. Protection itself tells you about security and backup. Right. So that is also a part of securing stuff, right? So how do you take a backup? How do you, in case if something goes wrong or someone deletes something intentionally, unintentionally, how do I revive or restore my storage? How do I restore my virtual machine if someone deletes it by mistake? So how to take backups? How to take do recovery? In case if the entire site gets failed, how do we configure with the help of Azure Site Recovery? How do we create a backup site? Right? If my entire region goes down, there is an outage. What do we do? So all those things we will be learning here in data protection. Final module is monitoring, troubleshooting. How do you monitor? How do you check logs? Uh, how do you create alerts? If someone deletes my VM, I should get an email or I should get an SMS. How do I configure it? So how do I monitor my cost, how much I'm spending? So on cloud, whenever you create any resources, so there is a subscription against which you will be charged. So there could be one or more subscriptions on your tenant, right? So if I want to check my current charge, right, how do I check those? How do I monitor my cost? How do I monitor my performance of my machines? How is the RAM? How is the CPU performance? Who logged in? Who logged out? In case if someone has logged in and deleted something and I find missing, yesterday my VM is there, today it's not there. How do I identify who deleted it? So all those things comes under monitoring. So under the monitoring, we will be learning those things. Basic troubleshooting, basic monitoring is what we'll be covering on the last class. And as I said, even after that, we will be keeping a class or two extra. So once the course gets over, we will keep a class or two out there for any kind of a doubt, queries, recap also. which is not mentioned here. But as I said, those things are also going to be there, right? So these are the things which is going to be covered in AZ-104. So right now we are not discussing the entire 500, 700. When the time comes, we will discuss that syllabus also. 500 will be more focused on security. 700 will be taking a deeper dive into networking. But administration course is something where you touch upon on everything: networking, security, monitoring, backup, storage, identity, playing with users. So it's a mixed bag. And even that developer thing which I told you, right? That PaaS services. So this AZ-104, sometimes people feel that it's more difficult than AZ-500 or 700. Those are specialization paper, but this is more a general paper where you need to know a little bit of everything, right? So storage also. So maybe you have to know a little bit about storage admin. You are also a AD administrator, identity. You are also working with app services and containers, which means like a developer, data protection as a backup engineer, backup, restore, that part also, monitoring also, creating and working with virtual machines, network engineer also, right? So a little bit of everything is going to be here in this course, which we are going to take minimum 6, maximum 8 weeks to complete, right? So that's the schedule. Okay, so Microsoft Learn profile is something which we recommend all of you to create. So I'm going to share this particular link with you. You can go here and create your profile. So the main intention is that whenever you do a self-study, automatically it will keep a track how much or what things you have already covered, what things you have not covered, etc. Right? Let me share this. Okay, so I've just shared where you need to create a profile to start with. Also, in case if you do not have a Microsoft account, we highly recommend you to create a Microsoft account also, right? So how do you create one? So just type there Microsoft account. Microsoft account. It's free of cost. If you click here, sign in or create your Microsoft account, see you have a place to sign in. So in case if you already have an account, you can sign in from there. In case if you do not have an account, you can create your account, right? So that's the place from where you can create our Microsoft account. So you once you create an account, you get a couple of free stuffs also. Okay. Also, Azure free account. This is actually valid for just 1 month. So I would not recommend everyone to immediately create this, because maybe if you don't start practicing immediately, you will lose the time. So only the time when you feel that now you are ready, you have gone through a couple of classes, maybe 3 to 4 classes, at least wait till the third or fourth class. And by the time you feel that, no, now I feel that I know something and I want to practice it, then only create a free account. So for specifically for those who have not taken up any labs, right? So you can come here and take a free account. Microsoft gives you $200 worth of credits. Just 1 second. See, get a 200 free credit. Try Azure for free, right? So this is the place. I think I've shared a long URL, but no worries. You can just search for a free account. That also will lend you here, and you can create a free account, $200 worth of Azure time, which you get 1 month, or $200 whatever gets exhausted first, right? So this helps you practicing with Azure. Okay, here of course you will need a credit card, but don't worry, they will just charge 1 rupee. That again will get refunded, 1 or 2 rupee, which also gets refunded within an hour or two. That is just to check you are not a robot and you are an actual person, right? So just to verify it. But then they are not going to charge. In case if you want, you can avail this also, if for specifically for those who have not taken up any labs. Okay, now if I type here AZ-104, the syllabus which I was discussing, the theory portion for the same, second, is here. Microsoft Certified Azure Administrator Associate. Let me share this link with you. So this is the place where you can scroll down. See level, it says intermediate level.
We are unable to copy the links from chat, sir, actually.
Yes, that copy paste might be disabled. So no worries, you can just Bing or Google for the same thing, like Azure free account, Azure Learn AZ-104, just like I was showing you here. Right.
It is working.
You should be able to get it. Right. Okay. So AZ-104, this is the place. If I go here, one second, give me a second. Yeah. So level, it says intermediate. Beginner is AZ-900 is a beginner level. I'll talk about that as well. Role administrator. Last updated product certification renewal frequency is 12 months, right? So once you get certified, every 12 months you need to renew. Renewal, there is no cost, free of cost renewal, but then you have to go through an assessment, right? No proctor will be observing you the second time onwards. Easily you can renew your certifications, right? Now here, if I scroll down, see it says for Azure Administrator, what are the main topics? So these are the main topics: virtual network, storage, compute, identity, security, governance. These are the topics on which you are going to be evaluated on as far as exam is concerned. Right. So prerequisite, you should be familiar with operating system, basic networking, server, virtualization. What is a virtual machine? Those things you should be aware of. You should have basic experience with PowerShell. Now, Azure CLI is not mandatory, but if you have worked with PowerShell, it's an added advantage. Now, here, if I scroll down, see, these are the modules. This is the theory portion. So if you see, these are the modules here. Prerequisite for Azure Administrator, manage identity and governance, right? So that's one module. Similarly, configure and manage virtual network. Similarly, implement storage. This way, these are the modules: manage storage, manage compute services, monitor and backup Azure resources. These are the main topics which you are going to work with. Now, if you want to go through the theory portion on your own, as I said, first create your profile, right? So if you see here, right now, there is an option here to sign in. Sign in. So once you create your profile, if you have not created a profile, you can say I am new. What is an advantage of, you can read the material even without creating a profile, but the important part is when you create your profile, you will get a tick mark against everything which you go through. Whenever you learn and complete a module, it will keep ticking that. So that will tell you your progress, what things you have already gone through, what not, right? So here, if I click on any specific module, it also tells you to go through the theory, how much time it's going to take. For example, for the first module, the theory part, it says it's going to take roughly around 1 hour, 3 minutes, roughly around 1 hour. That's an average time which anyone has taken. So you may take a few minutes plus or minus. This is just to give you an idea that 1 hour is the theory time for the first module. Now we are going to cover this tomorrow, right? So even before or even after you go through the class, you are free to go through. If you do it before, it's good. Even if you are doing it after the class is over, that's also fine. But make sure that you are in sync, right? So keep going through these particular modules, the theory portion also, because in the classes I will be mainly focusing on the use cases, real life stuffs, demos, etc. The theory portion, for example, I will give you an idea. Let us say there is something like P1 and P2, two type of tenant licenses which are available, or three types. There is a free also, free, premium one, premium two. So I will talk about two or three differences. But when you go through the theory, you will see a list. What are the features in P1? What are the difference features in P2. So there are maybe 10 or 12 features in P1. There are 10 and 12 features in P2. Comparison will be there. What features are there in free P1 or P2? So in exam, maybe you might get a question about this feature you want to use, which licenses you will need, free P1 or P2. So maybe in theory, when we are in the classes, maybe I have just discussed 2 or 3 finer points. But when you go through the theory, you will get to learn those things in much more detail. So that's the reason I always say exam is a different ball game. Just by attending the sessions, don't assume that you will be able to crack the exam. Go through the theory part as well, right? So when you go through the theory, if you see here, it talks about introduction, what is Azure Cloud Shell, how it works, module assessment, right? So you should basically go through each thing at a time, right? So if I click here, manage identity and governance, understand Microsoft Entra ID. This module, 31 minutes, half an hour, 8 units. It talks about what is Entra ID. And you see, it talks about Entra ID P1 and P2, the one I was talking about. So if I click here, then I will get to see detail about those things. What is Entra ID? What are P1, P2 licenses? Although we are going to cover everything when we go through the labs, but for example, compare P1, P2 plan, 4 minutes. If I click here, this is very much elaborative. It talks about each particular feature, which is there in P1, which is there in P2, etc. So it's basically more elaborative, the theory portion. 2, 3 things, of course, I will give you a demo. I might show you out there, but not every feature out there. And hence, we recommend that also keep track on that theory portion also. What are the P1, P2, etc. So this is basically is your AZ-104. So this is basically a complete link which tells you about how do you prepare for Z104. Even when you are ready and if you want to take up a self-assessment or a free test, that again is available here only. So here, if you scroll down, see, you will get a place. See, practice for the exam. Practice for the exam. Practice assessment. Take a practice assessment. Now, this is free. Microsoft is not charging you. So when you feel that now I am ready, let me take a practice test, you can always take a practice test here, right? So also there are some sandboxes which are available. So in case if you just want to practice certain things, if your free account is exhausted, and in case if you want to practice something, you can launch the sandbox and also practice, right? So this is for your practicing. This is practicing for the exam. There are certain exam preparation videos which are also there. The complete syllabus, theory portion, everything you will find there in this one link. How I arrived here, right? So I've shared the link, but in case if you're not able to copy paste it, at least see if I'm sure you will be able to click it at least, right? If even not that, maybe just come to Bing or Google and just type AZ-104, scroll down, and you will see this link, Microsoft Certified Azure Administrator Associate. So associate and professional, these are the two things which one is advanced level, right? Like AZ-3.5 is more advanced, which is more professional. But AZ-104 or 500, 700, these are called as associate level exams. In fact, 500 and 700 are what we call it as specialty exams, specialization. Okay, so this is how you reach here. Okay, any questions so far? So we have discussed about material, how to take test, right? The agenda, what we are going to cover, how we are going to progress, etc. Yes, Ramesh, you had a question?
Yes. What is compute means? Compute, what it comes under?
Compute, right now, to give you a simple understanding, let's say virtual machine is comes under compute. So compute is a service, networking services. When I said networking services, VPN, peering, firewall, all these comes under the networking services. So in Microsoft, what they have done is they all the services they have divided: storage service, compute service, network service. So when I say network services, you have got virtual networks, you have got firewall, Bastion server, jump host, DDoS protection, everything which relates to network. All the services network are called network services. Similarly, virtual machines, container instances, Kubernetes services, all these are grouped inside compute services. So when you hear the term compute in the syllabus, also compute, which means virtual machines. You are going to play with Linux VM, how to create a Windows VM, how do you connect to the virtual machines. Those things are considered as compute. Okay.
Okay, thank you. But I am just surprised why they have given the name compute for those
Okay. So
virtual.
right. So compute basically is nothing but this. If I type here Azure Compute Services, Azure Compute Services, see here, Azure official site, high performance computing. So if I go into computing, it will be talking more about, okay, this is about the free account and all. So here, see, it talks about virtual machine for Linux and Windows, right? Containers. So all these things comes under compute. So mainly think compute as a group of services. The main services under the computer: container services, Kubernetes services, virtual machines, Linux VMs, Windows VMs, virtual machines, all these things we say compute. Not only that, usually when we say that, okay, this website is not performing nicely, maybe we will have to increase its compute. So whenever there you see the term compute, which means in the back end, maybe there is only two virtual machines, make it 3 or 4. So that load gets distributed between more number of machines. So there we say that we want to scale up or scale down or scale out or scale in compute. So here again, there are 4 terms which you will hear. I want to scale up, I want to scale down, I want to scale out, or I want to scale in. What is the difference between these? So when it comes to compute, remember these 4 terms. So there are certain terminologies. For example, scale up and down. Scale up and down, which means what? So let us say I have a virtual machine with 16 GB RAM. Now, if there are multiple users gets connected to that particular VM, and now the out of 16 GB already 15.5 GB is used, what will happen? So the performance will start getting deteriorated, right? The user will feel slowness, session will hang. Why? Because the RAM is getting exhausted. So that is the reason nowadays when we purchase a mobile phone, it comes in 8 GB variant, 12 GB, 16 GB. We know that if you want to open more number of applications, it all goes into the RAM area, random access memory, right? Now, if I open up 15, 20, 30 applications, usually the performance of the mobile goes down. And that's the reason we keep stopping the stuff, right? So here what happens is when if I want to increase my RAM, so here, see, the more modern term is that I want to increase more compute. So compute is RAM, CPU. If I increase these things, then the performance will boost up. So then when I say scale up or scale down, which means if I use the term scale up, that means I will increase the RAM of this machine. Instead of 16 GB, I will make it as 32 GB. So this is where we are saying that we are scaling up. So whenever the CPU 2 core to 4 cores, RAM 16 GB to 32 GB, whenever I'm increasing, we say I am scaling up. Now in the cloud, it is possible easily whenever you want to scale up or scale down. So if you have a virtual machine, you want to reduce or increase its processor, RAM, etc., you can do it, right? This is what we call it as scalability. You can always scale up and scale down. This is possible. Also, there are 2 more terms like scale up is increasing, scale down. Obviously, it is decreasing. So from 16 to if I go to 8 GB, I'm scaling down. Now, there are 2 more terms. People get confused, and there are questions also, which is scale out and scale in. What is the difference? So scale up, scale out is different thing. That means, let us say if I have a pool, right, and I have a load balancer here, a load balancer. Now, if there are multiple users which are hitting the load balancer, In the backend, maybe I have got two VMs, VM1, VM2. Some users, it will route to this VM. Some users, it will route to this VM. That is what is the job of the load balancer. But if the number of users increase considerably, what happens is there is automation services, right? We call it as elastic feature of cloud, which can automatically add more VMs in the backend pool. So if this is my backend pool, automatically more machines can get added. This is what we say scale out. So I want to scale out my compute. So scale out my compute, which means more number of machines. This can be done manually also. I can add one or two machines. If you set automation, then automatically system can decide and add more machines in the pool automatically also. And that is the reason we say cloud is elastic. So AZ-900, when you go through, basically what you learn there, that's a one-day fundamental course, which is not a prerequisite. I repeat, some of you have done it, some of you are certified, but usually it's a one-day fundamental course where these things are discussed. What are the benefits of cloud? For example, why cloud? So instead of having your own premise, if I am moving into cloud, then I save on my infrastructure capital cost. I don't have to build the infrastructure. It is like not purchasing a home, but renting a home. So when you rent a home, you don't have to pay 50 lakhs, 1 crore, right? You just have to pay some deposit, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and then a monthly rental accordingly. So similarly in the cloud, you don't have to build an organization don't have to build their own data centers. Instead of building a data center, they can put the data into Microsoft data center. So that way they save a lot in the capital cost. That is the main benefit of moving into cloud. Only operational cost which you have to pay every month for the subscriptions, etc. Licenses, subscription, every month, small amount you have to pay, just like you pay rent instead of purchasing a home. So cloud has become really popular, and in AZ-900 we talk about what is cloud era. Right, we show them the benefits of the cloud. We also talk about terms like what is scale out, what is scale in, what is elasticity, scalability. These are some terminologies which we talk about there. What is infrastructure services, platform services, software as a services? What are the differences? For example, in infrastructure services, again, you will see the term that compute, etc., is provided by Microsoft. But operating system onwards, everything you need to manage. Operating system onwards, everything you need to manage. So let me discuss these three things here, which is taught in AZ-900: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So infrastructure as a services, when we talk about virtual machines, VM. Now, any virtual machine which you want to run needs a hypervisor, Hyper-V. So Microsoft says, okay, Hyper-V also will run on some kind of a physical box, a physical hardware. And this physical hardware also needs some kind of a rack where multiple hardwares are put. And those racks needs a data center. So Microsoft says that forget those things. These things we will manage for you. The data center, Microsoft says we will manage network, storage. The physical thing we will be managing, the physical hardware, physical network, switch, router, all those physical components we will be managing. Even that Hyper-V, they will be managing racks, physical box. But this part, virtual machines, you as a client will be managing. So in the infrastructure services, Microsoft says you start with the VM. You start creating VM. Below the VM, everything we will be managing. All infrastructure we will be managing. Anything which can be touched, forget it. You don't have to manage. You remotely manage your virtual machine. You install operating system. You install application. You manage the data. Everything you manage. But the physical infrastructure will be managed by Microsoft. So virtual machines comes as infrastructure as a service, where the virtual machine client manages, and the below stuff, for example, hardware, etc., will be managed by Microsoft. Platform as a
Can we have
service,
real-time
PaaS.
example, please? Sorry.
Real-time example for infrastructure services.
Yes.
Okay, so real-time example is, let us say, for example, if you want to host your own website. So if you want to host your own website, there are two things. One is you create a virtual machine with Windows installed on it. Then you install .NET on top of it. Then you write a program, and then your website is ready. So, but below this operating system, what is needed? Below this operating system, what is needed is a hardware. So Microsoft is saying that, okay, you don't have to manage the hardware. You just start creating a virtual machine on Azure. So when I log into Azure, after we do that users, etc., I will show you that you can start creating the VM. So everything is running in their data center, where we don't have to walk inside. We don't have to manage the heating, cooling, the data center, physical security. Everything is being managed by Microsoft. So this is what Microsoft is saying, that this infrastructure is a service which we are providing to you. For that, you give us monthly rental. Only you pay for the VMs which you are running on our infrastructure. So if you are running 1 or 2 VMs, whatever RAM, CPU you have chosen, accordingly you pay us the cost. You don't have to pay for the entire data center. So as a client, we will only pay if I'm running only 2 VM in their data center. I will be paying for 2 VMs. How much? Maybe 200 rupees a month. Very much possible that I'm just paying 200 and I'm having a virtual machine running out there, and my website is running on there. I am only managing my website remotely, connecting to the VM, installing .NET, installing the operating system, .NET, whatever binaries are required, creating, programming my website. All those things I will have to do. But below infrastructure, I don't have to manage. That will be managed by Microsoft. So this is an example of infrastructure services.
Yeah, thank you.
But what is platform services? Under the platform services, Microsoft tells us that you don't even have to manage the operating system. The update, patching, operating system, .NET framework, no problem, don't have to manage. Let us again use the same example. I want my website to run. So Microsoft says, okay, you want to write your website in .NET or Java. So I will say, okay, I want to write it in Java. So what is the prerequisite? So prerequisite will be, you will need a data center. You don't have to build one. You don't need to build any racks, servers, hardware as infrastructure. But here the good thing is you don't even have to install operating system. You don't have to create a virtual machine. You don't even have to install the Java runtime environment, .NET framework, nothing. All those binaries automatically will be taken care of. You just start writing the code. So here in platform as a services, you are only working on your code or program. So you are not managing the operating system. You are not managing the virtual machine. You are not managing any infrastructure. So infrastructure part is already, it's a superset. So infrastructure part you don't manage here also in virtual machine. But in platform services, example is app services. So this is a platform services. So here you don't have to manage infrastructure. Neither you have to create a VM. Neither you have to install any operating system. Neither you need to install Java, .NET, any binaries. You can just start writing the program. You just tell that I'm writing the program in Java. System will handle whatever prerequisite. System will install OS. System will install JRE. Everything system will take care of. You just have that code window, type the code, and your website is running. Below operating system, don't have to install. You don't have to manage. You don't have to upgrade. You don't have to take the backup. You don't have to worry about high availability. You don't have to worry about the under physical architecture, anything. That's the beauty of platform services. Finally, software as a services. What is an example? Example is Office 365, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365.
Hello, sir.
These are the example of software as a service. Here, you don't even have to manage the infrastructure. You don't have to manage the operating system. You also don't need to write any code. There are ready to use application. Just consume application, pay monthly rental. Right. Yes, Ramesh, your question, please.
So in platform as a service, the Microsoft gives us the virtual machines to us to write
Actually,
code.
yes, Microsoft gives you the virtual machine. So which means you don't have to create or manage the virtual machine. Here in infrastructure, you start by creating a VM. Then you install OS on top of it. then you install .NET or Java on top of it, then you create your program. So everything like in the conventional days, how you used to manage, still you manage the same way. Only thing which you don't need to manage in this case is the below infrastructure. But in platform services, you don't have to take RDP of the remote desktop of the VM. Actually, you cannot take the RDP. You don't have to create VM. You don't have to install operating system. You don't have to install .NET Java. You just start writing the code. So you are just managing your program and data. That's it. Your program and data all below infrastructure managed by Microsoft. The platform is also managed by Microsoft. Operating system, availability, installation of OS, installation of the binaries, .NET, Java, JRE, managing, backup, high availability, everything will be taken care by them. So here our focus will be as a developer, it is a very interesting thing. See, they don't have to manage infrastructure, neither they have to install and manage the OS like older days. They can just start writing the program. This is also there in our syllabus. We are going to work on, remember, app services, and I will be showing you the main difference. So in fact, in our syllabus, I will also be showing you this part, how you start with a VM, install all these things and make your website. And with platform, how you can create your website even without installing any VM, operating system, nothing. So there are two ways how on Azure you can work. So some services offers you are platform services where you don't have to manage the operating system and virtual machine. And there are some services where you have to manage the operating system and virtual machines. So example here is virtual machine, Azure container instances, virtual machines, Azure Kubernetes services. Some of these things comes under infrastructure services. And app services, SQL services, these are all come under the PaaS services. So yes, even the SQL services, database. So you are managing the database, but you are not managing the below operating system. You are not need to patch the operating system. You don't have to create any VM. So forget the physical thing, also forget the OS part. That will be taken care by Microsoft. Right, so that's the beauty of platform services. So platform service, infrastructure. This is a very common question which comes, and in AZ-900 and fundamental also these things are discussed. What is the main difference between platform and infrastructure? So main is in infrastructure, I have to create VM, I have to install OS, I have to install .NET, then I build my website. In PaaS, I start building my website. I don't have to create VM, I don't have to create any OS, nothing. And I don't have to manage, backup, patch, everything will be taken care automatically in the PaaS. So which is more costlier? Obviously, the PaaS services are comparatively more costlier than infrastructure because here the management responsibility is shifted towards Microsoft more. They are managing only the physical hardware in infrastructure services, but in platform services, they are managing both the physical infrastructure plus that logical middle thing, the operating system, virtual machine, which is needed for your application to run. And you are managing only the topmost layer, which is application. You are creating application, managing application and data. That's it. And the most easiest is software services. There are ready to use software online, which you are using. You don't need any hardware. You don't have to install OS. You don't have to install your application also. Example, see a live example here. If I go to Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365. If I go here, www.office.com. I'm sure most of you have already worked on it. So if I go here and if I want to work with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, everything is available here. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. I don't have to buy any hardware. I have never installed operating system and I have never installed and managed the application also. All the three layers, the hardware, the middle layer, which is operating system, and the application, everything managed by Microsoft. What I need to do is I just have to log in. If I click right now here on this Excel, see Excel is coming up and I will be using this Excel without actually installing Excel or managing Excel. I can just go here, create a blank workbook. See, Excel opens up. In earlier days, if I want to do this, just imagine in earlier days what you need. So to work with this, first you have to buy a hardware, install operating system, right? Where is this summation symbol and all? Let me use a formula equal to this. So what I am doing is I am using Excel here, but I have never installed Excel. Excel is running somewhere on the server side. So application is being managed by them. Excel is running on a OS. That OS is also managed by them. That OS is running on a hardware. Hardware is also managed by them. So infrastructure, platform, software. When all the three are managed by Microsoft, it is software as a service. When only infrastructure and OS is managed by them, platform services. But when only infrastructure is managed by them, everything else you are managing, virtual machine and onwards, then it is infrastructure services. So virtual machines comes as infrastructure service. App services comes under the category PaaS. And this one, which I just showed you, like this Office 365, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, which you see here right now, which you are using by taking up a subscription. This is Office 365. So this is the example of software as a service. Right. So this is basically what is taught there in AZ-900 course. So AZ-900 course is what just right now we had discussed and covered in that one day. Basically, we discussed these three things: infrastructure, platform, software as a service. Then we also discussed things like what is a private cloud and what is a public cloud and a hybrid cloud. What is the difference? So private cloud is your data center, but look and feel is Azure. Example is Azure Stack. Azure Stack. Azure Stack is an example of private cloud. So private cloud means what? Let us say this is my data center. My data center. On my data center, I want the look and feel of Azure. So data residency is mine. So I want my data center to look and feel like Azure. So I will call up Microsoft and I will say, okay, see, I already have a data center, but I want to use and consume Azure services. So install all the Azure services and make the look and feel like Azure portal. They can do it. And this is where Azure Stack comes into picture. We call it private cloud. Second thing is public cloud. So public cloud means the data center belongs to whom? Microsoft data center. And on top of that, already Azure layer they have installed and configured, right? And as an end user, sitting at my home or my office, I'm connecting and managing my data, my virtual machines, my web servers, my database servers remotely. So, but here the Azure is running where? And my data is running where? On Microsoft's data center. So we call it as public cloud. So private cloud is my data center, public cloud. The data is residing there on Microsoft, right? Data centers. So it's a public cloud. And the third one is hybrid. So as you may have guessed, hybrid is a combination of private plus public. So what I want is some data in my data center, some data in Microsoft data center, and now I want them to communicate. My virtual machine on my data center should connect to the virtual machine which is running there on cloud using VPN or express route. Then we say you are working in a hybrid model, right? So you have your own premise Active Directory, and then there are some users you have created on Azure, and you are connecting using AD Connect. There are various ways. Then we say we are in a hybrid culture. So if you are on a hybrid cloud, which means you are having some data on your data center, some data workload running on Azure, public, all the data on Azure, private, all the data on your data center, right? So that's a difference between private, public, and hybrid.
Hi, Hitesh. Well, this side.
Yes.
I have one question. Yes, because what my understanding, something is different. So far, what I understand, if you see as a private cloud, what I understand, okay, again, my services hosted in Azure, somewhere in the data center, but I will get a dedicated resources, which means if I am an enterprise, I subscribe to some certain things. I assumed, okay, I will get a dedicated resources, okay. Where in public cloud, I understand that again I can get a subscription, but the backend resources are shared. So that's what so far my understanding. But now you said that is something different. So
No, it's actually what you said and what I said is actually the same thing. So when you said dedicated, private. So private here means that actually when we talk about the private, especially then when I use the term Azure Stack, right? So if you see here, let me show you here. Azure Stack. So Azure Stack is a portfolio of hybrid cloud solutions from Microsoft that extend Azure service and capability to on-premise data center and edge location. So what they are saying is that in case if I want the capabilities of Azure, but on my on-premise data center, on my data center, then you can use this Azure Stack. Azure Stack. So Azure Stack is one of the examples of your private. So there again, like you already said, that I want the things dedicated, which means I want a piece which is only used by me. I don't want to share with other companies. Usually in the public cloud, what happens is I am also keeping my data. Some other company is also keeping in my the data. So in case if I want a private place owned by me, it could be my rental one or Microsoft provided, but that facility is only used by me, but no one else. So the private word comes up there. So data residency is private. Also, when we talk about this Azure Stack, most of the organization has their own data center and the look and feel they get is of Azure. So Azure Stack is one such product which makes the look and feel of Azure, but data residency is your own private data center.
Okay, so hereafter I can say like this: if someone speak about private cloud, it means that on-premises data center owned by enterprise, but we can feel like we are working in Azure.
Yes. So here you see, if I talk about Azure private cloud, Azure private cloud, see the definition. It says Azure private cloud provides dedicated compute, storage, and networking resources for a single organization, offering enhanced security, control, and customization. It can be deployed. See, it says it can be deployed on premise or in a Microsoft managed data center.
Now I got it. Okay, so it's based on our.
Yes, so it is either your own data center or it's a private place, which is not maybe, but you are paying a rent for it. But then it will be called as yours only. It will be dedicated only for you. No one, none of the other people. So that's the reason I said what you said, and I said both are mentioned here. See, it says it can be deployed on premise or in a Microsoft managed data center, but dedicated hardware only for you. With that hardware, the other people or other companies think will not be working on that. Just like in a public cloud, there are multiple organizations, right? There we use the term kind of tenants, a tenant of Microsoft. And just like we say that, okay, I have one particular building, there are 3 floors. In first floor, one tenant is staying, second floor, one, third floor, one. So there are multiple tenants staying in the same building. But one thing could be that, no, I don't want like that. I don't want to share any resource. The lift at least is getting shared by all the 3 tenants. So I want all the resources to only be by me. Right. So I don't want to share any resource. So in that particular case, they will say, okay, we have got a Microsoft will say either you come with your own data center, look and feel we will build on your data center, or we have got some smaller dedicated places where you pay us rent, then you can call it your own. When you rent a particular place, even the landlord cannot come in without your permission, right? So then that will be dedicated for you. You can call it your own data center only, and look and feel will be your own, and no one else's data will be there. It will be private, only dedicated for you.
Okay, thank you.
Make sense?
Yes.
Yes. But the residency, as it clearly indicates, could be on-premise or it could be Microsoft managed. But in either case, it is only dedicated to you. That is more important. Private. It is going to be dedicated for you. No one else will be using. And hybrid. When we say hybrid, which means there are certain things which are kept in a private way in my data center, either owned by me or rental. That's a different aspect, dedicated for me. And some data I have kept in that public place, in the public cloud, and now I am connecting both. They are interacting with each other. AD Connect, Express Route, VPN, by some way I have connected. That is what we say that it is a hybrid model. Right. So these are the 3 models: private, public, hybrid, which we often talk about. Now, 90% of the organizations are in which model? Can anyone tell me? Almost 90% of the organizations.
Again, thing like Microsoft Management Data Center.
So 90% of the organizations are in hybrid model. So in
Right.
hybrid model, which means they have some data on their own data centers, some data they have kept on Microsoft. So I have seen multiple organizations, like even while introduction, some of you said that you are working in a multi-cloud environment. You have AWS also, Google also, some data on my cloud, some data is there on Azure. Nowadays, that kind of an era is there. I have seen one organization which has got some workload running on AWS, some on Azure, some on their own data center. And these are all connected finally. We call it hybrid. So again, hybrid term, there is no proper definition. Anything which is more than one entity. When you have AWS, Azure, or Azure on-premise, or Azure and Microsoft stack, we use the term hybrid. It is in a hybrid model. That's what we call it, right? So that again, data center could be my own. It could be a rented data center, but it's private and dedicated to me. But some data is on public. Then again, we use that we are in a hybrid model. So hybrid, private, public. Now, usually use cases for private, complete private, who goes for? Usually military, government organizations. Usually there are dedicated cloud for them, right? That they don't want to keep the thing in the same place where the public data is kept. Now, there are few special regions. Like, for example, Azure has got US GOV region. US GOV region. Now, this is a spatial region. We cannot keep our data here. In this region, only US government keeps their data. This is a very, very specific region. Even for AWS, it is there. Even for Azure, it is there. Azure US GOV region. Azure for US government. So here, there is a dedicated data center in a particular region, of course, in United States, which only keeps data of this US government. Right. So this is called as a spatial region. So you should know about the spatial region, but Department of Defense, intelligence community, federal civilization, state, local, they keep their data here. They keep their data here. So this particular data center is not open for general public. So people like you and me, we cannot keep our data there. Right. So when you create a virtual machine, you can choose, I want to keep it in US, I want to keep it in Canada, India. There are multiple regions, but you cannot keep your data in this specialized region, which is meant for US. So this is called as a spatial region. Another special region is China. Azure China region. This is also a spatial region. See, this is operated by 21 via net Azure in China. It is physically separated instance of cloud services located in China. So this is a spatial region. So again, in this particular region, it is independently operated by Shanghai Blue Cloud Technology, blah, blah, Azure operation in China, pricing, etc. But anyways, the main thing which we again need to know is we cannot keep our data here. This is dedicated data center, which you should be aware of. But in this region, only it is meant for China, right? It's meant for China. We cannot keep that. So this is again a special region. So there are some special regions: Germany, China, US GOV, where we cannot keep. These exist. We should know that these special region exists, but we cannot keep our data in these particular regions, right? So again, this is something which we discussed in AZ-900, right? What is a spatial region? What is cloud? What are the benefits of cloud? Elasticity, scalability, etc., reliability, right? Presence. Azure has a presence in 60 plus regions, right? Azure number of regions. See, in fact, now 70 plus. Earlier it was some 68, but recently 2-3 more regions have been added. Right. So now the total has gone more than 70. So 70 plus regions. So Azure has got, like in India, we have got 3 regions. One is in Pune, one is in Mumbai, one is in Chennai. Pune, we call it as Central India. Mumbai, we call it as West India. Chennai, we call it as South India. So 3 regions only. Out of these 70 regions, 3 are in India. Other than that, you will hear a region name like Southeast Asia, which is Singapore. Then you will hear a region named East Asia, which is Hong Kong, right? So I've just named a few regions, but if you want to see all the regions, right, what are Azure regions and a list of Azure regions, you can go into these things. Azure region list. So see, all these are basically the place where there are Pune, Pune, right, in India. So Pune is a central India region, right? So all these are basically the regions which are there. Now, usually every region is paired with another region pairing for high availability. So there are some of the Azure services which automatically replicates the data in a paired region, just in case if there is a region failure. What if my Pune region goes down, some outage or something? So I want to replicate data also in Mumbai. So usually what they have done is every region they have paired with another region. Every region there are some exceptions. There are one or two regions which till now pairing is not done, but most of 99% of the regions are paired with another region for high availability reasons. Which region is paired with which region? That again, in this list it shows you. Australia Central 2 paired region is Australia Central. Similarly, Brazil South is paired with South Central US. Now, usually every region is paired with another region in the same geography except Brazil. Brazil is one exception, which is paired with another region not in the same geography. Otherwise, you will see all other regions are paired in the same geography. Australia, paired region is also in Australia. Both the regions are in Australia in the same geography. Similarly, Pune is paired with Chennai, right? So again, see, both the regions are in the same geography, India. Hong Kong and China. These are also an example of region pairs, right? So Hong Kong and China, Hong Kong and Singapore. Hong Kong and Singapore are also paired. So here, see, it gives you a complete list of Germany West with Germany North. Now, there are some regions like Israel and Italy not applicable, which does not have a region pair. Like I told you that there are a few exceptions. Till now, these are not built, but they are in works. The region pair will be coming soon. Japan East with Japan West, Japan West with Japan East, Korea Central with Korea South, right? So North Europe with West Europe. Usually, see, region pairs are there in the same geography.
This data keeps changing or constant?
Keep changing?
This data keeps changing or constant? Always.
No. The region pair is same. The data which changes it, yes, Microsoft is still growing. More number of regions are getting added, which means they are building up more data centers. So right now, just a few months back, there were 65, 66 data centers. Now we see there are 70. So after 1 year, you might see that there are maybe 75 or 80 regions. So which means they are still building up new data centers, right? So even Microsoft has planned a data center underwater. Any one of us who have heard about Project Netic? Project Netic. Project Netic. What is Project Netic? Project Netic is nothing but Project Netic was a research and development effort by Microsoft to create an experimental undersea data center. Undersea data center. So not only in land, but Microsoft is also planning to build up a data inside waters.
We
Right.
heard
So
about
this
undersea cables. Hearing about undersea data center. Yeah.
Cables is there since long time. Cable is there since long time. Internet cables are all underseas, 99% of them. But the complete data center underwater is what Microsoft. So they had done a small research. If you see, just a small kind of a thing which they are calling it as a miniature version of a data center, which they had put underwater to check whether it is able to operate or not. Because if it is able to sustain, then heating cost goes down considerably. So this is Project Netic, and in fact, they had tied up with AWS also. It was a kind of a joint venture for this particular project, right? So Project Netic, even in AWS, they talk about this. Microsoft also talks about it. It was a joint venture between.
Its main purpose is to to save the water or what? Because I have been hearing a lot of scarcity of water and people are revolting for not using the data centers in the residential areas and all.
Mainly, see, the data center uses a lot of needs a cooling, etc. There are servers, etc., which generates tons of amount of heat, and to cool them, there is air conditions and those kind of refrigerations which is required, and there is a huge amount of cost every month which goes in it. So they were planning if it can be built below waters, maybe considerably that particular cost can go down, right? That heat portion, in case of it. So that was their prime thing. Also, of course, that land cost is also going high. So if they can build up the entire data center, nowadays we have already heard about hotels and restaurants which are underwater. In UAE, I think there is one already, right? So, and I'm not sure. I'm sure there are some other restaurants also, but I believe that was the first one in UAE, right? Burj Al Arab or something. So, but then a similar fashion, now Microsoft is planning to have an entire data center underwater. That's Project Native, right? So I thought first day we should know some of these particular things like region pairs, where the Microsoft regions are. So every region, Microsoft has got data centers. So every region, there are multiple availability zones. Each availability zone, think of that as a data center, a dedicated data center. So 70 regions. In each regions, there could be 1, 2, or 3 data centers. Every region will have minimum 1, maximum usually 3 data centers in each region. So number of data centers, if there are 70 regions, think roughly 150 to 200 data centers Microsoft has in entire globe. So when you spin any resources, you can plan and choose to create your resources in any of these particular data centers. But two things which you should keep in mind: you cannot keep your data in the special regions like China, like US GOV. We cannot keep our data there. Second thing is, we also have to abide by certain norms. Now, again, not for everyone, but there are certain countries which has got certain norms which tells that you cannot keep the data outside the geography. Like in India, no problem. If we want to keep the data in Singapore, our government allows us. If I want to keep my data in Germany, our government allows us. In India, till now, when I speak, there are no such special or rigid norms out there. But in case if you read through certain norms, like in Europe or EMEA, there are certain GDPR. What is GDPR? That is General Data Protection Regulation. Just like we have got various regulations like ISO, CMI, MMI level 5. We have heard about HIPAA, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. Similarly, GDPR, NIST. These are some governing bodies and certain regulations which are enforced by the governing bodies. Like GDPR is one such, is mostly there in European Union residents. There, they to protect the personal data. What they say is this applies to every organization's workload that processes US user data, carrying heavy fines for non-compliance. And what this GDPR says, there is a lot of things which it says, but one main thing is that they cannot keep the data outside the geography. They have to keep the data in the geography. So although technically it might be possible that the data can be kept in US or India, but in case you are working with any organizations which are dealing with the European Union residents' personal data, that is not supposed to be saved outside the geography. That has to be there in that geography. This is GDPR norms. Similarly, in US, there are some NIST norms which are there, ISO norms. Again, for example, point of view, you should understand that these norms exist. You don't have to go through detail of it unless you are going more into the governance of these norms, etc. But I just wanted to speak a little bit about this so that you know that GDPR, NIST, ISO, some of these particular PCI DSS. PCI DSS is more industry specific. In case if you are working with, let us say, payment card industry, credit card departments, banking, then that PCI DSS should be followed. Similarly, if you are working with the health insurance company, then there are some HIPAA standards which needs to be followed. HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Similarly, PCI DSS. So depending upon which organizations you are working, maybe you will have to go through their standards and their best practices. So technically saying that, okay, I can do this, I cannot do this. But if you're working with a specific industry, specific country, you have to check their industry or company policy also before you build up your infrastructure. When you plan for your infrastructure, these things also we need to keep in mind. So maybe I tell you one of the cases which I have seen. I used to work with a particular company and I was there in Germany, Stuttgart. I worked there in Munich, Stuttgart both. So Munich or Stuttgart, I'm not sure where exactly. I had worked with both the cities there in Germany. And what happened once is there was a new administrator who was hired, and he came from India, joined the day when he joined, by mistake, he had plugged in his pen drive in one of the machines, which got noticed by a superior manager or someone and got reported, and he got deported because of that. Think this small thing, what he did, he just plugged in a pen drive in one of the systems. Now, this was actually, and before even he was told, and before even he knew all these norms, he did this mistake, and it was an accident. He didn't knew about those things and the norms before it was told, and before he was briefed. Also, he did this, and immediately he was removed. So there are instances where I have seen such kind of things happen. So it's always good that not only technically we should be well versed, but at times some basic norms we need to know based on the company, industry, or country which we want to work with. We should abide, and we should be aware of that terms, etc. also. So I just wanted to give you a gist about these things also. Now, usually in AZ 900 courses, what we do is that one day we spend understanding some of these terminologies, benefits of cloud, private public cloud, hybrid cloud, infrastructure, platform services. So all what I have discussed in past 1 hour, maybe we elaborate on that, and we discuss these things with lunch breaks, etc. Right, and we elaborate on it, and just in one day we discuss these things. Not much about Azure as such, not much hands-on is there in that one day course, right? But then mostly it is theory and understanding cloud benefits, etc. And understanding why cloud is important and why it is becoming popular, right? So just wanted to discuss those things today in the first class. Anyone, any questions?
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So
All clear?
just now you showed one example for application software as a service like Office 365.
Correct.
So in this course, as an Azure admin, can we see where exactly that file is stored, or which virtual machine the Excel was installed? Can we
No,
see?
that's the beauty. So that's encapsulation. You can access the file, but you cannot access the machine on which that file is stored. That is not allowed. So with platform services and with software as a services, we cannot access, update, patch, modify, or take and remote desktop of the actual virtual machine where the data is being stored, and forget the hardware. Hardware in Azure, complete Azure, 70 regions it has got availability, but never ever as an Azure user we are allowed, unless of course you are Microsoft internal and you work for Microsoft data center and all, unless that is the case. Otherwise, you will never ever will be able to touch the hardware. You all will be working remotely only. Virtual machine is running on a hardware, but you will not be able to touch it. Forget touching. Microsoft don't even reveal the addresses of the data center. Right now, can anyone raise your hand and say, hey, I know the address where Mumbai data center is located? You will not be able to. No one knows the address. Microsoft don't even reveal the addresses of the data center, all the 70 regions. Region you will know it is there in Mumbai. You will know it is in Singapore, but where exactly? The physical address, 27 by 1, Little India, no, that's not there. So with infrastructure services, you will not know hardware. You will be able to access the VM onwards. For platform services, you will not be able to understand the hardware. You will not know the address. Not even you will be able to access the VM. You will not be able to RDP or SSH. Just like any Linux machine, you do an SSH using PuTTY, or RDP or Windows machine, no. So for platform services, you will not be able to access the below virtual machines, like app services, which I was talking about. With virtual machines, you can do it, which is infrastructure services, but platform services, you cannot. And with software as a services, you cannot access hardware, you cannot access operating system, you can only access your files, you can double click and access the application, but you cannot patch it, you cannot install, you cannot actually RDP the below operating system. That's the beauty of this.
I understand. But for example, there is a customer, so you wanted some SQL database or something on the Azure cloud. So you wanted to confirm whether the redundancy is there for his application or not. So how
Okay.
you know?
Yes. So redundancy is there, but again, for software as a services, that high availability and redundancy, we do not manage. You can check the features, like whether my data is safe or not. Tomorrow, if that below operating system goes down, Microsoft has configured it properly or not. So that part is there in the theory. If you go through the Office 365, Microsoft 365 documentation, if it interests you, it tells you that yes, and 100% it is there. The high availability, etc. The replication is happening of your data in multiple places, but we don't manage it. But when we learn storage account, there we will see how that is configured. That again will be done automatically, but GRS, ZRS, LRS, we will be talking about locally redundancy, zonal redundancy, geo redundancy. How do we configure those things for the couple of services, for platform services, for infrastructure services, for the storage account? Yes. Yes, I see network devices falls under infrastructure. Yes, those also comes under the infrastructure services. Mostly the services are bundled as network services. Okay.
Then who will patch the user? So the customer has created database. So you got a service, some database, SQL or something. So who will patch those machines where the SQL or the database installed?
Okay, so good question. One is if it is infrastructure services, which means if you have created a VM, you install the OS, you install the database, then you patch it, you manage it. So in case if you have used infrastructure services, which means you have started with a VM and you have installed the database, so then you need to manage, you need to patch, you have to configure high availability. So in infrastructure, those things as a client you need to do. But on Azure, we also will be talking about PaaS services like app services and SQL database PaaS services. So under the PaaS services, you don't have to manage the below OS. You don't have to patch the databases. You don't have to patch the operating system, the security patches, upgrades. Everything will be taken care by Microsoft, high availability, etc. We don't have to worry about those things under the PaaS services.
Okay.
Okay. And of course, as and when the course progresses, you will see it live, how it is done. So today's class was a bit more on theory. Tomorrow we will see how do we log in into Azure and how we start playing with it. But today, those basics which are usually covered in AZ-900, I wanted to make you familiar with those things so that you just not feel that I have little left, I have not done AZ-900. So those who have already done AZ-900 certification, they can assure you that yes, these are the things which they have learned and comes in exam. So in the nutshell, we have just told you what exactly that certification looks like. And that's not a prerequisite for AZ-104. Added advantage if you know. And now anyways, you all know a bit on that part, right? Okay, so fine. That's it for today. Hope session was informative. Tomorrow we will start up with
Sir, one question.
Yes, Raghavan.
One question. So, while creating a VM, so which one they are using? Actually, they are using VMware ESXi host, or
Oh,
which one actually they are using?
No. It's a customized version of Hyper-V, Microsoft's own hypervisor. Right. So see,
Okay, they are not using.
uses customized version of Hyper-V, not VMware. Right. So
Okay,
here
in that
somewhere
case,
if you go,
Hyper-V is the product of Microsoft only.
yes, exactly. So behind Azure, actually it is the customized version of Hyper-V only, which is being used as the host part, not VMware ESX service.
Okay, and also for data storage, which device they are using? Which company device? Like we have to store the
Microsoft
data,
will
right?
not
So much.
disclose those exactly or precisely. There are storage area networks which are being used. That could be third party also, right? But usually Microsoft do not disclose. As the Azure storage, when they mention, usually the backend exact product they do not mention.
Okay, and for this networking, which device they are using, like Cisco
Again,
or
same. Again, same thing. So in the backend, again, they might be using Cisco, but again, they are silent on the exact precise which cable, which router, right, which is being used out there. But there is something called marketplace, which we will be talking about. So when you are building up your own infrastructure on cloud, on Azure, you can choose. So let's say if you don't want to use Azure Firewall. So Azure Firewall is backed by the Microsoft or Microsoft partner products. But if you don't want to use it and you say that, okay, I want to use Juniper firewall, or I want to use Fortinet firewall or Cisco Pix firewall, is it possible? So answer is yes. On cloud, there is something called bring your own device or use your own product. In the marketplace, there are third-party products which are also available. Symantec Net Backup, various firewalls, Citrix NetScaler, VMware product, Citrix ADC product, various third-party products which are available, which are supported. For script-wise also, cloud agnostic, Terraform, etc. are supported. So Microsoft has their own inbuilt Bicep or ARM templates with which you can build infrastructure, but the third party are also supported on cloud. Yes, so coming to your question, Microsoft, although they don't disclose exactly which particular product or company's product they use for network storage, etc., but usually in the marketplace, there are various third party, which we will see tomorrow onwards when we start the actual classes. How, in case if you want, you can bring in devices of the third party. If you want to work with a Fortinet firewall instead of Microsoft Azure firewall, we can do it. But course-wise, syllabus-wise, we will focus on Microsoft product, Azure firewall, Azure network, Azure backup. But I will also tell you and I will show you, if you want to use Veritas Net Backup, or if you want to use Fortinet, where do you get those things? Right. So,
Okay. I think then Microsoft engineers like data center engineers who are working, they might know the exactly their devices, like
that's what
storage
we call it as
devices.
internals. Yes. So maybe those who are
Then
actually working insiders, there are very few insiders who might be knowing those, but usually that's not disclosed to public. Exact. So even if they will tell, like for example, when we talk about VPN and all, they will not just support one. For example, if I'll show you this part. Let us say if I say Azure supported VPN devices. So here you see, if I go to this Microsoft Learn about VPN devices for connections, partner VPN devices, so it will not name only one. It is going to name how many. If you see, there are various vendors which are supported. Arista, Barracuda, Checkpoint, Cisco. These are the Cisco ASA, CSR, ASR. All these are Cisco. Big IP F5, Fortinet. Right, all these are supported. And you see this documentation is coming from the authentic learn.microsoft.com only. Right. So when we talk about VPN, so these are the supported ones. So they will mostly talk about which all are supported, which all are, but they will not be very much precise and tell you that, okay, use this one or we use this one.
So Hitesh, one thing like while I was working on the Azure platform, right, as a network engineer, so there was similar kind of network where we use Cisco products, and also where there were Juniper devices as well. So the networking, whatever you see, the connectivity is similar to what the other companies use. Yes, as Hitesh told you, there are different hardware they support. Similar to that, Azure also is having the same network environment what the other has, Office 365 and Azure, because I personally worked on Azure environments as a network engineer, so I'm much aware of that.
Yes, thank you for adding that, Akbar.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll keep it till here today. We'll call it a day, and we'll continue tomorrow. And tomorrow, consider it as a first class where we will be discussing on identity. Right. So tomorrow, most of us, we will get to have a glimpse of Azure first time. I will show you how do you log in into portal, how do you browse, how do you create users. So tomorrow is the day when we actually started AZ-104. Right. So today was more on our introductory and AZ-900 to make sure that we are at the same page today. So thank you everyone for joining, and see you tomorrow, same time.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hitesh. Thank you all.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you, sir.